Oh, hello, young lady. What can I help you for?
Hi, I was wondering if you would like to subscribe to our magazine.
I don't want any encyclopedias. I still have mine from the 30s. Thank you, though.
No, they're magazines. I don't know if you've ever heard of the publication Kisma?
I don't know Kisma. What's Kisma?
Kiss my ass, you old fogey. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Oh, it's a demon child. Oh, no.
Chill, dude. It's just a TikTok prank.
She has
like,
black
oh my god.
eyes.
Oh my god. Like and subscribe for part 2. And
God, my heart. Oh my
god. What the hell?
My
what the
ticker's
hell?
going.
No, TikTok. It's just a TikTok prank, dude.
My heart.
Oh my god. Call 911. Oh my god. Oh my god. Is he okay? Oh my god. Call the ambulance.
I gotcha. Like and subscribe to my TikTok. Follow me on Instagram. More pranks against ne'er-do-wells in my neighborhood. Later, fam. By the way, you're listening to Anomalous.
Very good stuff there that
Oh,
we made up, and we're, it's always quality.
It's always good.
Always good. It's always quality. Follow me on TikTok. Please like my TikTok of the Ned Flanders fan cam, and just follow along my journey as I rebrand myself as a big titty Italy goth GF-areno.
I think the fact that you got over 600 views on a TikTok that's just fawning over the muscles of Ned Flanders is already a miracle. I don't know how much further you can really push this.
Honestly, I thought I'd be canceled. There was a 50-50 chance.
Well, the world isn't fair if you think about it.
I recently got my hair dyed for the first time. I was a dye virgin. Mm-hmm. I'm no longer a dye virgin, and I'm no longer going to dye a virgin. Shout out to Cullen.
Hey, everybody.
Sorry, Mom and Dad.
Yeah, sorry about that.
But also, my mom is already asking about grandchildren. So, like, what's the truth? It's kind of weird. And it's like you have a grand dog.
Yeah, I'm pretty certain at this point that she can't possibly love any of our children more than she loves our dog. Welcome back to an Anomalous 3 weeks after the last Anomalous was posted. Are you proud of me? Is everyone proud of me?
Are you proud of me? I'm Spooky Maddie, and you better be proud of me, and I'm a Ned Flanders stan, baby.
Yeah, be proud of her in spite of that fact, and be proud of me as not a Ned Flanders stan, despite all the peer pressure to get into it.
Just gonna say that here at Anomalous, we talk about all things mysterious, scary, and...
Can I just check in really quick? Do we cover things that are ooky?
Yes, most of the time.
Cover things that are spooky?
Oh, yeah.
All the time?
Oh, for sure.
Do we cover things that are creepy?
I'd say so. Yeah.
This isn't like an all the time thing, so don't stress out about it, but sometimes do we cover things that are crawly?
Yeah.
Now and
you
again.
know what? Now that I'm thinking.
Now and again. Perfect.
Now and again, I think so, yeah.
Well, now that they have the idea of the show, now that we've completed the checklist, what are we covering this week?
Today, we are talking about the black-eyed children. And what was that joke from the fucking...
From the worst article I've ever read. This time we're covering black-eyed children. And no, it isn't the love child of mid-2000s group Black Eyed Peas.
Yikes.
Yikes.
It's a bad joke. And we stole it. Is that allowed?
It's a really weird rule that they don't cover a lot in copyright law, where if something is trashy enough, it just becomes public domain.
Oh, yeah. As some of you super fans may recall, this is going to be very personal, as I have had experience with black-eyed children, with a black-eyed child. And that is the boy who lives like a few doors down, who just like comes into our garage.
Yeah, approached her car and asked if she wanted to make a lifelong friend.
It's scary.
Not a normal question.
He was so insistent. Oh, God, I'm getting chills, like thinking about how he was truly evil.
Well, that's the scary thing about this week's cryptid.
So today we're talking about a terrifying new type of cryptid. These creatures aren't 10-foot insects or hulking apes. Instead, they almost perfectly disguise themselves as human children in need of help. They can talk, they can lie, and they seem to come for those who know they exist. So good luck.
Sorry about this. This is the second time we've put a bunch of people on the radar of a cryptid.
Oh, yeah. So follow us on Instagram at an Anomalous podcast and let us know if we cursed you really hard with experiencing a black-eyed child by listening to this episode.
Follow our podcast on Spotify to be hunted by ghouls.
Or just to have a good time.
Yeah.
Have a nice one.
Well, you're going to have a good time until you're running for your life from ghouls.
I was going to say I could outrun a child, but I don't think I can.
Oh, you can outrun a child. You just have to throw rocks at their feet.
While running, do I run backwards?
You stand your ground for a minute until you get a good hit on one of their toes, and then you run.
I did see on one of the subreddits about black-eyed children, one person was like, I'm from England. I'm from the bloody, what do they call it?
Mankville.
I'm from the bloody Mankville, and we cannot have guns, so if a black-eyed child was to accost me, I wouldn't know what to bloody do. It's like, wow. So if you were in America, you would shoot a child that comes to your door?
Well, I mean, that's just how we roll here in the colonies.
I was going to say, I was like, is that what they think America's like? Because they're right.
They are more or less right. So, black-eyed children, what are they? Why should you buy a gun to shoot them?
Why should you shoot a child? Well, you know, a lot of reasons that you can decide for yourself, but hopefully we're letting you know one new reason, as if you needed another one.
If you need another reason to shoot a child. Can we say this?
I don't know. I don't think so. Oh my God, the FBI.
Oh.
The female body inspector.
Oh my God. Oh. I feel ignored.
Oh my God. Black-eyed children, as we know them, have been appearing since the 1980s or 90s, with rumors of much earlier encounters. In the 2000s and beyond, sightings have accelerated, with reports appearing online and in magazines. A large percentage of the sightings are purported to be from Portland.
I don't know what that's supposed to mean, but it seems like some sort of attack.
If you guys are unaware, Portland is in Oregon.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Maddie fact of the day.
Idiots, if they don't freaking know that, what are you freaking idiot?
Dumb.
So stories differ slightly, but black-eyed children generally look like normal kids between the ages of 6 to 16 years old. Their skin is deathly pale. They often appear at night or in bad weather, knocking at people's front doors or approaching their cars. They may dress in a way that appears very out of time or inappropriate for the season. They ask to come inside and are very insistent. They may offer reasons such as needing to use the phone or needing a place to wait for their parents. But those unlucky enough to encounter black-eyed children describe having an immediate sense that something is not right. The children cause feelings of dread and impending peril. Some reports describe how they talk and act as bizarre or inhuman with emotionless voices and faces. They seem to be unreactive to the outside world. Despite the strong negative feelings seeing the children brings, many say that they still feel compelled to let the children in. It is said that they can have a hypnotic effect on dogs, preventing them from barking and alerting to their presence. But of course, every sighting notes the kids' eyes, which are completely and utterly black. What?
I don't want to interrupt you. I was just remembering how an article described them. And it's right. And I don't know why I find it so funny, but one of the articles is like, their eyes are black from lid to lid.
Ew.
I don't know why that's gross.
I saw wall to wall. That seems a little better.
Yeah, less descriptive, less correct, but a little bit less gross too.
I thought you were going to say they're black like a doll's eyes.
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
They're obviously black like a doll's eyes.
I mean, it's clear. So most prominent is the children's black eyes, lid to lid, utterly black. It is said that they only come to those who know of their existence. They often visit more than once. Letting them in always brings misfortune. So that is the general lore, what we know about black-eyed children. Very scary stuff.
Honestly, a cryptid that can disguise itself. Very frightening to have something showing up that looks almost perfectly like a human child.
For sure. And I think it's more of like a phenomenon, you know?
Yeah.
It being not like a Bigfoot that I kind of do believe that there would be cases before. They just weren't organized or labeled as a black-eyed child.
You have a lot of those experiences, that only get tied into a certain mythos when they are like corroborated with other people. Like when you're given that idea of a black-eyed child or even like of aliens or of a Bigfoot, it like sort of starts to fill in weird experiences that people have had. And then stories come forward. It's like, oh my God, that's what I ran into.
Yeah, for sure. You could have like this experience with a black-eyed child, not know what it is. Or like even before it was termed that and be like, well, that was fucking weird. Okay. Yeah. And not even know it's like a thing.
Right. It's like our black-eyed children experiences. We already talked about the one that came up to your car, but he reappeared and came to the door. And they'll use any excuse to get in. He was trying to, quote unquote, sell his Pokemon figure so he could get a new toy. I didn't believe it for a second.
And yet you felt compelled to buy the Pokemon figure.
I did. I felt bad that I don't have cash.
What creeps me out about the fact that he approached an adult in their house.
Well, I didn't turn around and he was in the hall like, do you want to buy a silver Charizard?
I guess he didn't come in the garage, but he was in our driveway.
Yeah.
Like as close as he could to the garage. Asking me to come over to his house. There was not a parent in sight. If it's not a black-eyed child, then something bad's gonna happen to that kid.
In defense, though, I'll say, as a kid, driveways of people's houses is basically sidewalk. That's at least how I treated them.
I'm gonna raise our kids. Okay, number one rule. Don't go to someone's house that's an adult and then invite them over to be your lifelong friend.
Yeah, that's a very good rule and almost too specific to ever be applied, but...
And also, I'd probably supervise them. Like I said, there was no... What if I went? Then what?
Yeah.
So they describe that you have a deep feeling of dread, which as someone with anxiety is like, oh, every day of my life.
Yeah.
But also, what's crazy is I saw him in the neighborhood one day when I was driving in, and I had a deep feeling like in my heart that he was stealing our mail.
Yeah, you just thought that you proclaimed that on the podcast.
Yeah, I really felt like he was stealing our mail.
Like I said before, that's entirely baseless.
Oh, well.
So what's the first event that kicked off the modern understanding of black-eyed children?
Though there is speculation that sightings go back into the 1980s, the first available record comes from Brian Bethel, a journalist from Abilene, Texas. In 1998, he wrote about his experience in a paranormal mailing list. I can't seem to find the name of this ghost mailing list.
Yeah, been difficult to track down, but it's clearly one of those beginning of the popular internet things where it was a blog and he'd send out these collected stories. It's basically a one-man zine of paranormal stuff.
Yeah, about ghosts and what I would do to get on that mailing list.
Yeah, I feel like early internet, you would have been loving it.
It's exactly like what your dad sends out every year.
Yeah, it is more or less that. It's weird that he covers so many ghost occurrences in our family newsletter.
Oh, yeah. So Brian was out late in his car. He had stopped in a movie theater parking lot to write a check. Fogey shit.
What is this, the fucking 1800s?
Honestly. While he was writing, he heard someone tap on his driver's side window. He turned and he saw two young boys looking at him. They were between the ages of 10 and 14. He hadn't noticed them approach his car. As Brian rolled down his window, he said that he was hit with a wave of, quote, soul-racking fear, end quote.
And remember, before COVID times, you didn't just get that feeling of terror anytime a stranger came up to you.
Honestly.
Very important to point out.
So these two kids approached his car. He was scared. And the kids told Brian that they were trying to see a movie but forgot their money at home and asked if he could give them a ride. Like someone conveniently forgot their wallet when we went to Dunkin' Donuts today.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
So rude. So Brian said that the story didn't feel right and that it was late enough that the movie they wanted probably wouldn't be showing again that night.
Also, what are kids doing out seeing the last show of the night?
They're being kids. What? Were you a loser?
He later says that it's a 10-year-old and a 14-year-old. Even if they're brothers, going to an 11 o'clock show.
That's fair. Where are these kids' parents? That's a common theme.
That's a common theme.
So when Brian started to give an excuse for why he couldn't help, the boys tried to reassure him by saying their house wasn't far, they were just two kids, and they didn't have a gun. Brian said that this reassurance did not help. Yeah, I'd be like, okay, here's my stand up. If Brian Bethel had a stand up. So I was in there in my car writing my check, as you do. These two kids came after me. These two kids, they're like, oh my God, these young kids. I'm like, great. What do these hoodlums have to say? Don't worry, I don't have a gun. Well, I wasn't worried. And then you said that.
Very good.
Thank you. Yeah, analyzing every single part of this little vignette, they were just two kids. I also would hate that.
Oh,
but don't
yeah.
worry, we're just two kids. What are you really?
And they kept on being like, well, we can't get into your car until you say it's okay, which we'll talk about later with like what they could be. But that's like a weird kid thing where it's like, our parents told us not to like deal with strangers. What if they said it's okay, that it's okay? It's just annoying kids being accosting.
That's fair. Yeah, kids are kind of just annoying, as it were. So half of these could be like, the moral of the story is kids are just, nah, it's a nah from me.
As someone who's been like a 10 to 14-year-old boy in the past, I'll say the gun thing's weird, but that age of boy is far too liberal with like talking about guns and stuff. Like they don't understand how scary it is to adults who understand mortality. Because how many like little boys have you seen out like putting their hands up and going do 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 at like
True.
strangers?
True, and I would say kids are kind of fucking weird. I worked at a daycare, and they say weird shit, and they overshare random details. So I guess I could kind of see them being like, "We're two little boys."
Right, but you can't discount that, you know, two kids around that age. It's very rare, and you shouldn't be afraid of children. But there have been cases of like kids, preteens even, being violent.
Oh yeah. You should be afraid of children. I mean, there was a case just yesterday about 2 teen girls killing.
Yeah.
Just don't help anyone and always watch out and just be wary of every single thing is how I live my life.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm doing fine. All right, so after this like terrible reassurance that Brian was given, he then looked away from the kids for the first time. The moment he broke eye contact, he said the feeling of deep fear ramped up into near panic. And when he looked at the boys again, he saw that they both had completely blacked out eyes. As the boys became more and more insistent and irritated, Brian finally pulled the car into gear and sped out of the parking lot.
Good call made a little bit too late.
Nice. So that was kind of the first modern record and really the story that termed it.
That's what most sources point to. It's like the big first one that kicked everything off. Even though there are stories from beforehand, that's the beginning of when people started to put all of these black-eyed children stories together.
For sure. So we have other stories, and although, as Colin said, believed to have originated in Bethel's account in 1998, there are stories that date much further back that seem to involve black-eyed children.
I saw claims that there were a couple from the 1970s and even back to 1947, but the earliest one we could find was all the way back to 1918.
This story had been recounted by the man who experienced it, his grandson. So this occurred in 1918 near Sandoval, Illinois, and Grandpappy heard a knock on his door one summer day. So this was unusual since most people who visited knew him, wouldn't really knock, but rather call out like,
Hey, Grandpappy. That was his actual name back then.
Oh, yeah.
Back in 1918, they named him Grandpappy.
Here's my impression of Little John visiting Grandpappy. Hey! Oh, hey, Little John, want to come in for some biscuits and crumpers? Yeah! All right.
Very silly.
So he thought what it could have been was a drifter from the train tracks. He lived near train tracks. When he opened the door, however, he found 2 clean, well-dressed children. 1 boy and 1 girl, though only the girl spoke. The girl said, quote, "May we come in to rest? It's a long way home," end quote. The man didn't want them inside, but offered for them to stay on his porch instead. He was off-put due to the children's extremely clean appearance, as well as the fact that they wouldn't look him in the eyes.
Was everyone in the past just filthy and it was a social faux pas if you weren't?
Okay, no, I actually have an explanation for that. He thought it would be like a drifter or a train rider, a train jumper.
Yeah.
Or someone who lived near the train tracks, so they would be dusty, especially from like crossing the fields or something. They were usually dirty and grimy.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
I just imagine a group of people in 1918 all surrounding, pointing and laughing at someone in the middle, and they just like have shampooed hair.
Yeah, honestly.
There's no like horse manure on their face.
That's how I imagine England in the old times and also now.
Or like what if there's one hobo who's known for being really clean? Old Jiminy Clean Tips. His fingers are always so scrubbed clean. There's never a bit of grime underneath old Jiminy Clean Tips fingernails.
His secret is the cat method of sucking his fingers till they're clean.
Yeah, he might ride a coal train all day, but then he...
That was terrible. All right. So the girl said again that they needed to come in, and when they were denied yet again, she began yelling, "May we, may we, may we, may we," with increased fervor. She had eyes black as coal. Peepaw slammed the door. I laughed that I put in Peepaw. Peepaw slammed the door on them, and later found his dog terrified and, quote, shaking like a leaf, end quote.
Now, considering the fact that you were just barely able to say the word peepaw without laughing out loud, was it the wisest thing to put in the notes?
I'm going to make our kids call my dad Peepaw. My mom calls herself Grammy Num Nums.
I think about it sometimes. Granny Num Nums is a very frightening name. She only calls herself Granny Num Nums in relation to like watching our dog. Or like she's our dog's Granny Num Nums.
Yeah.
It sounds like she is in a hut made out of dog treats in the woods. And she lures him in to cook him in a giant pot.
Oh, great. She's the witch from Hansel and Gretel, but for dogs.
Yes, but for dogs.
Except he still loves her more than us. So.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, she's got a fucking house made out of dog trees. What do we have?
Fair.
A couch made out of dog hair?
It stinks. Yeah, so this is very interesting. And once again, I imagine, you know, back in 1918, you're like, what the fuck was that? And you like tell your grandchildren and stuff. It's like, thank you, Peepaw. And then the grandson is looking on Reddit or some shit, having a wank to an anime girl, and sees something about black-eyed children. And it's like, oh my God, that sounds exactly like the story old Peepaw told me.
I'll have to tell everyone the second I finish squeezing out this nut to Hatsune Miku.
Weep. But like I was saying, old Peepaw's story, I imagine that the grandson is like, wait, this sounds like this phenomena, if that makes sense, that it's something that maybe had occurred here and there, it just didn't have a name.
Right.
So when people are saying like, oh, it's recent, that's just the reported stories that are termed specifically black-eyed children.
Right, absolutely. Jumping forward almost 100 years, this next one from 2014 is sort of the next big story that helped people online get exposed to the black-eyed children mythology.
For sure. In 2014, black-eyed children were thrown once again into the public eye after a sighting in the UK was covered extensively by British tabloid The Daily Star. Yoinks.
Some of the worst articles I've ever read.
Oh, yeah.
Here's the headline for you. Black-eyed children exposed. Paranormal researcher sheds light on the truth behind this phenomenon. And then it's literally just like 2-line quote from him. Yeah, I think it might be like a folktale sort of thing. I don't know.
Terrible. But this story was also covered in the Huffington Post. Paranormal investigator Lee Brickley reported the story that was given to them by a witness that remains anonymous. It reads, quote, on Saturday, 13th of September. Oh, I'm supposed to say it in a British accent.
You don't have to.
Oh, yeah, I do.
You don't have to.
Oh, yeah.
No, you don't have to.
Oh, yeah.
You're not required to.
Quote, on Saturday, 13th September, my wife and I were walking through a cunt chase near...
A cunt chase? Is that like a police chase?
Oh, my God.
But snail trails?
Do I start over? Quote, on Saturday, 13th September, my wife and I were walking through Cannock Chase near to Style Cop with our dog. Once we had entered the woodland and the road was no longer visible, we started to hear the giggling noise of a little girl. To our amazement, a child no taller than 1 meter in height appeared as if out of nowhere further up the path in front of us.
I'm about 3 feet 4 inches tall.
Thank you for that, honestly. We stopped dead in our tracks after noticing her eyes had no color. Her head was tilted to the side in much of the same way it would appear as if she had been hung. She stared at us for around 5 minutes before running away into a densely grouped area of trees. My wife wanted to follow her, but I was having none of it. End quote. So similarities with the last one that kind of contribute to the lore. I might talk about this more, but it's super interesting since in this case, just kind of a compilation of stories of people being like, this is my experience. Oh, this is my experience. It kind of leads to pretty much new details in every story do contribute to the lore since there is a lack of stories. But something similar between both of these I think is interesting. There is a lot of reports of the children just kind of like appearing out of nowhere. You won't see them approaching. They'll just be there.
Yeah, absolutely.
This one I would say is a little different. It's close enough that in the new state, people were like, whoa, black-eyed children? Like, what is that? But a lot of people question whether this exact encounter was a black-eyed child sighting or maybe a ghost or a demon.
Right. So there is some more background into this. I don't know if it's big enough that we'll do a full episode about it at any point, but it's a ghost in Staffordshire that they think came from a girl in the 1970s who they think the victim might have been, but it's not confirmed whether it actually is a ghost of them or some paranormal researchers think that it's a demonic presence, but multiple people have cited it around there and really has gotten tied into the black-eyed child thing because of the aesthetic of coal black eyes, but it actually more closely follows, right, a ghost or a demon.
But it is something that is interesting to keep in mind because just being kind of a newer thing that is just being examined by the public, that it could be, yes, this is both a black-eyed child and a ghost, and black-eyed children are ghosts, if that makes sense.
If a quote-unquote genuine black-eyed child sighting is so similar to this sighting, it really might give us some hints about what a black-eyed child is.
For sure. And so as the black-eyed child story gained traction, there have been more and more appearances, more sightings across the world, a lot in the UK, but a majority in the US. So going back to the US in 2015, we have another story of a couple who experienced a black-eyed child.
Right.
So in 2015, a couple was awakened in the middle of the night by a little boy and girl banging on their door.
I already hate this story.
Yeah, and the huge lore about being like filled with dread. If anything knocked on my door at the middle of the night, I would be scared.
And any unexplained appearance of some like random kids, frightening.
Yeah, it's true. Oh my gosh, today your mom came over like an hour ago and
I told you beforehand too.
She knocked the door and I was like, ah!
And then she came and she's like, hey, did your dog bark when I showed up?
Yeah.
And you had to meekly be like, no, that was me screaming.
I was scared.
And then there was last night when I kicked the table to scare the cat and you let out a sound that was identical to a 1930s car horn.
That's so rude. I was so embarrassed. That was. Okay. It was my legitimate scream of fear. It was like, oh!
Just imagine men holding down their top hats with the ends of their canes as they scuttle out of the way of your Model T.
Oh my God.
Oh!
I was scared. Not everyone screams like, ah! You know? That was my genuine fear reaction.
That is Hollywood propaganda that you have to scream like a person.
Excuse. So this couple was awoken in the middle of the night by knocking. Scary. The woman who reported this story noted many details of the bizarre scene. On top of it being late at night, there was a heavy snow coming down and the kids weren't in winter clothes. The woman added that their clothes were strange and old-fashioned, as were their haircuts.
She might have just been being a little bit judgmental.
Yeah, I was going to say the same exact thing.
She did say that it gave her the vibe that they were like Mennonite kids, but there was really no Mennonites around. She said that the boy had like some sort of close to a bowl cut, and the girl had like weird old-fashioned, totally straight hair.
That's Beetle fever, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe. It's like a little tiny John and Yoko.
Yeah. Also, I mean, just a side note, it's super interesting that they wear the exact wrong clothes every time. Like, they never get it right once.
Yeah.
So the children didn't seem afraid at all, despite their circumstance. And the girl even repeated, quote, "Our parents will be here soon," end quote, in a sing-song voice.
Horrifying. Hate it.
Oh, yeah.
I hate when even they're having fun and they do like that sing-songy voice.
It's scary stuff.
It really is.
The couple noticed their usually friendly cats were nowhere to be seen.
That's everyone, though. That's every person with like a big dog, like, oh, they're never like this.
Oh,
or
my
like,
God.
oh, our cats are usually so friendly. Why are they running away and climbing up the drapes?
Yeah, true. When the woman went into the kitchen to make the kids some cocoa, that's nice, she saw one cat hiding under the kitchen island, tail puffed, and it growled and hissed when approached.
That is a bit extreme.
True. When she returned it to the living room, the children finally looked at her, revealing their pitch black eyes. She said the sight triggered an overpowering sense of fear. The children suddenly asked to use the restroom and went in together. While the kids were in the bathroom, the man's nose started bleeding, and soon after, the house lost all power.
Not unheard of in like a big snowstorm, but weird timing.
The woman went to the bathroom to check on the boy and girl, but found them instead standing motionless in the dark hallway. Suddenly, they announced, quote, "Our parents are here," end quote, and walked straight past the woman and out the front door. The couple watched them as they left and saw they were picked up by two tall men in a black car, neither of whom would acknowledge the parents in any way.
This is the part of the story where the cryptids accidentally become heroes to Just Maddie for having gay dads.
I was gonna say, it's like, well, are they creeped out because they're supernatural beings, or are they creeped out because they have two dads? Homophobic.
Wow, that is homophobic, but it definitely isn't the actual case. And don't get mad at me for this, but if they actually did have two dads, what's the chance that they would have had outdated haircuts and shitty clothes?
Oh, man. Cancelled. Misfortune actually, unfortunately, plagued the family after the black-eyed children's visit. One of their cats disappeared and another suffered a fatal hemorrhage. The man's nosebleeds became a frequent occurrence, and he was later diagnosed with an aggressive form of skin cancer. The woman gave fewer details about herself, but claimed to be in the worst health of her life. These sound like the result of a curse, but they also oddly align with the effects of serious radiation exposure.
Very interesting. I think I've heard some accounts where that lines up with some Men in Black encounters, that they have issues relating to radiation after experiencing an encounter with Men in Black. So it could be a similar phenomenon, or maybe the same creatures or something like that as black-eyed children.
That is very interesting. So another story occurs in 2015 in the US, and it would be in Alabama. Two friends who had been reading up on black-eyed children separately experienced the same creepy kiddos.
Ooh.
And this is interesting. The lore is that they come to people who know about them, and especially to people who had just been reading up on them, investigating them, things like that.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I'm scared. I'm legitimately scared. I mean, I just wouldn't open the door, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we'd just tell them to, like, go away. I mean, that's what we did to the regular non-black-eyed child that came up to our door.
That's true. Go away, kid. So, one of the girls was alone in her house at 2:30 a.m. when her dogs began to cry and growl in terror. There was a knock on the door, and two boys ages around 5 and 10 were standing with their faces covered by winter hoods despite the summer heat. They seemed to know exactly where the woman was standing and looked in her direction. As it was dark, she couldn't see their eyes. As it was late at night, she didn't open the door or respond. So she was just like looking out her peephole and looking out her window, and they like followed their eyes.
Oh, so they saw and they looked at her when she opened the window and they were looking at her when she looked through the peephole?
Yeah.
That's frightening.
The older boy asked, quote, "Ma'am, can you let us in? It's really cold out here and my brother is hungry," end quote. Keep in mind, this is Alabama during the summer.
You think from the previous event where they were in the winter, they were like, all right, let's take notes. How can we improve on this? Wear winter clothing, more natural. Then they went to Alabama in the summer and didn't think about it.
Seems like they don't have that much brain space, or we'll get into maybe are not understanding of this world, because they're not consistent at all. First of all, they always fuck up their clothes. Second of all, they'll say things like, "Can I come in? Like, I'm hungry," or "I need to use the restroom." And then they'll be like, "I need to use your phone."
Yeah.
And I saw a story of someone who let them in and they're like, "I need to call my mom." And then the next thing they said is like, "I need to call my dad." And they called someone and she was like, "Was that him?" And they were like, "Who?" It's like, "Your dad?"
Yeah.
So-
That kind of reminds me of like those AI chats that you could do where like they can respond to the sentence you say, but there's no continuity in what they know.
Yeah, that makes sense. So this girl was terrified and she felt that if she let them in, something bad would happen. Despite this, she also felt compelled to help them. The boys said they knew she was in the house and it would only take a moment of her time. When the door remained closed, the kids began banging on the door and window, yelling at her to let them in to call their mom. See, and in this case, at first they said they were cold and hungry, and now they're saying they want to use the phone. Terrified, the woman hid and waited until they left. She then called her friend to come over to help calm her down. Her friend arrived at the house crying, saying she experienced the same boys. She said they knocked on her car door when she was stopped at a stop sign and told her to give them a ride. They had eyes that were wall-to-wall black, and the friend felt like she was being pulled into their stare and compelled to help. She snapped out of her transfixion and booked it.
Wow. That is a crazy story.
So those are some firsthand-ish stories of sightings of the black-eyed children. There is a good amount of stories, so we just went over 4 that were important in the lore or that we just found particularly creepy.
Yeah. So now that we've gone through them, theory time.
So as the lore is fairly recent, many haters believe that black-eyed children are simply a contemporary legend or creepypasta before the internet. As stated earlier, there's a clear origin to the stories, with Brian Bethel's account in the newsletter, though he claims he's heard from others who had sightings before his own, like in the 1980s.
Lots of claims of stories that are documented going around.
Damn. Fair enough. Although it is possible that there have been stories before 98 that involve this phenomenon without the specific name, as we've mentioned before.
Right.
So, could he have fictionalized his original story? It's possible.
It seems like the sort of thing you'd do as a one-man paranormal newsletter.
I mean, he has his newsletter people to entertain.
I don't want to get sued by the large legal team behind Brian Bethel newsletter at blogspot.org, but I think maybe if he was lacking for a little bit of content, again, not to insult the journalistic integrity of his publication. But give it to me straight, Spooky Maddie. Am I being too much of a bitchly?
It's a little rude. It's a little hurtful on Brian Bethel's behalf. So, interestingly enough, there was an MSN video about black-eyed children that kind of blew up. So it really popularized the phenomena in the public eye. And this MSN video happened to coincide with a movie that was being released about the black-eyed children.
Happened to.
So,
Remember when that Disney script they got like stolen by like a roomkeeper?
yeah.
Okay, so Disney came up with that tale about like a person cleaning rooms in a hotel, stealing a script and then selling it on eBay. That's just completely made up. And if it did happen, then what also happened was that poor woman got gunned down in the streets by hitmen paid by the big mouse.
By Goofy. That's his side gig. That's how he pays for Max's college. I'm the one who yucks. So now that we got that lame-oid theory out of the way, let's get into the real shit. Could it be a skinwalker type of creature? Let me explain. Skinwalkers are evil, shape-shifting witches prominent in Diné or Navajo culture. They can shapeshift into animals and they will steal your body. The background of this creature, the Skinwalker, is similar to black-eyed children in that the knowledge, discussion, or interaction with any lore or stories about the creature can draw them to you.
Very interesting. And shapeshifting into animals, I'd like to say COVID has taught us that I was right about a very controversial take, that technically, biologically speaking, kids aren't people.
What the fuck?
Like, adults are different enough from kids that, like, viruses work on them differently. So, could a skinwalker change into a kid? Because we haven't really seen them change into, like, people, which is why you said animals. But without calling children animals, can I somehow suggest that a skinwalker can turn into a kid?
Well, I think they like steal your body to wear it, so maybe they're just
Stealing kids' bodies. That kind of coincides with a similar theory coming from Iroquois traditions of the Otcon. These are essentially creatures that are born with chalky skin and completely black eyes, and they can take over children that wander around. So think skinwalker in the woods or Otcon in the woods, and children going around, their bodies essentially get stolen and they get turned into these coal-eyed creatures.
That is interesting. It does seem to line up a lot with what we know about black-eyed children. I will say, in terms of the idea of thinking about it or interacting with it, bringing it to you, it's a little bonus theory of a tulpa, which is a being that is created through a mental or spiritual thought.
And that kind of aligns with some Men in Black stuff. We'll talk about that in a minute. I'd say, of course, taking over the body of children and turning them into these creatures makes a lot of sense with skinwalkers. Some of the things against it is skinwalkers tend to operate more as like genuine animals. I don't know if I've ever heard about them talking or pretending to be people like down to that T. Usually when they're confronted, they run off and like skitter away or attack. They're much more bestial.
Yeah, and probably aren't going to Oshkosh Bagosh getting that Sunday mass fit. But I will say something I kept in mind with a lot of these theories is that the stories of sightings of black-eyed children, they don't really act like humans. Like, they are very uncanny. They're not that great. Like, you can tell something's off.
Definitely.
So another theory that some of you may have considered due to the nature of black-eyed children is vampires. Are they vampires? It's also something that is a fairly popular theory about black-eyed children. So a lot of stories about black-eyed children really coincide with typical vampire lore. Obviously, the big one here is they cannot come in unless invited. So vampires, thinking Edward Cullen,
Yes.
are very seductive. The venom makes them attractive. While black-eyed children are definitely seen to be very mesmerizing and hypnotic, and this is seen in how they compel people to want to let them in.
Right. Yeah, and that aligns with some of the more old school vampire lore.
So another theory that gets tossed around a lot, and I just gotta make shit up to shoot the shit, piss the crap about this, because aliens. It's aliens.
We love to call shit aliens.
It's all extraterrestrial.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, there could be things that align with something not of this world, I think, for sure. Many who experience black-eyed kids say they do not act human. They tend to have unnatural and emotionless mannerisms and ways of speaking. Could black-eyed children be aliens trying to disguise as innocent children in order to get information? Also coincides with their general uncanny nature and way of dressing. It really seems like, you know, aliens watching Earth from afar and being like, is this how you be human?
Yeah. As much as we love to just call shit aliens, it really does make sense that you have these people watching from the outside, possibly with a very different perception of time than we do, where they don't understand that to us, like haircuts or clothes out of time or even out of season is a very big tell, but to them, that might not be such a significant thing. And they send someone down disguised as a child. They understand that a child is something that we're going to want to help and accept, but they might not have these details, right? It actually, that reads a lot to me.
Yeah, it's a classic trope that makes a lot of sense because not only is there something that's not right about them, but it's just an approximation. It's uncanny.
Yeah.
So oftentimes black-eyed kids ask to use the telephone. Could they be trying to E-D-bone-o?
Nice.
Thank you.
I think that that's actually a really big point in the aliens camp.
Oh, yeah. Can we use your telephone to your leader?
Do you think that those people who approached us when we went to that concert in downtown were black-eyed kids?
Yeah.
That was uncanny. They were like, our car just got stolen and our phones were inside.
Can we use your phone?
We need to call insurance?
Yeah, who?
Who would you even call? And who just like, you know what I do when I get in a car? I throw my cell phone right on the dashboard.
Yeah, it's so unlikely to me that these two, like, people our age, like teens or 20s, they both left their phone in their car that got carjacked.
And then you just said, we don't have phones, which is exactly as unbelievable as both of our phones were in the car.
I'm a woman. I traveled alone. I don't fuck with that shit. No. I'm not afraid to be like, don't talk to me. I just keep walking. I've perfected it. And honestly, people are impressed.
Absolutely.
Like panhandlers in Europe just kept walking, run even. But yeah, here's a hot tip. When someone asks you to donate or something, except for us, donate to our PayPal below.
Very good.
Not today. Just say that.
Yeah.
And then if they ask again, like, oh, it'll take it. Not today.
Because it sounds like you might have done it other days.
True. It's classic.
And sometimes we do.
Yeah, I'm not afraid to tell a motherfucker no. And
yeah.
I actually like it. So going back to aliens, I think one of the most compelling phenomena that is linked with the black-eyed children would be, of course, a lot of people link it with Men in Black and Men in Black experiences, Men in Black exposures. I mean, the one story we read, it seemed like the black-eyed children's parents were Men in Black adjacent.
It could have been, sure.
Do you want to explain a little?
Men in Black are possibly cryptids. There's some form that show up after usually alien encounters or encounters with something paranormal. They sort of seem like guardians or protectors of, the sub world of aliens and extra normal phenomenon. Mm-hmm. And they have these very similar discontinuities with our timeline, if you want to call it that. They act in these weird ways. They have these blips in conversation where it doesn't match up from what they said before to what they're saying now. So they match up in a lot of these ways. And of course, they are also disguised as quote unquote normal everyday people just showing up at your door.
It's a very similar idea, and just the uncanniness. A lot of Men in Black sightings I've heard state that the Men in Black are very tall, like slightly abnormally tall, like maybe 6 foot something. They also have very pale skin, and their features appear just a little off, just a little plain or not formed completely.
And a lot of the time, it's a proportional issue, especially earlier Men in Black sightings. It seems like possibly they learn over time. Like they're tall, but their proportions aren't quite right. Or their face looks normal, but maybe their lips or their nose are like too big or just the wrong color. Like they're still getting down the impression of humans.
Yeah, the other big thing is just kind of a psychological experience that happens when you interact with both black-eyed children and Men in Black. Foggy information, maybe there's time jumps. You just, out of body in a way, you just are overwhelmed with a lot of different feelings. With black-eyed children, it's of course like the fear. Yeah, in Men in Black, you can lose chunks of time, lose memories.
And you're just in this state of high strangeness where what's going on doesn't totally make sense, and there is this feeling of unease.
Yeah, and of course, men in black are connected with aliens. A lot of people believe they may be aliens themselves, maybe a type of alien that is the CIA of the universe.
Yeah, possibly some sort of, not to get too nerdy, some sort of like prime directive type arbiters that come in and make sure that people don't see things that they shouldn't know about.
So in this way, black-eyed children could be the same thing as men in black, and both of them being some sort of extraterrestrial.
And of course, that two-step process where if you saw something alien, you're more likely to get contacted by men in black. And if you know about black-eyed children or possibly other phenomenon, then you're more likely to be visited by them.
Yeah, that's very true. I didn't think about that.
This is really the closest for me of the out there theories. It really seems to align well.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, other than the fact that they're children.
Right.
And once again, I think once we learn the motivations of the children, it will, I think, illuminate a lot more, because I don't think they necessarily have the same.
They don't have that same goal.
Yeah, as men in black, but it is very interesting.
Well, here's a home-baked, we like to throw in these anomalous home-baked theories. Could it be that these black-eyed children are supposed to be even lower, deeper cover research vessels for men in black? Could they be coming to people's homes to examine them to help build up the disguise of men in black, who are then going out and doing the work of suppressing extra-normal sightings?
This was one of my own home-baked theories that at the end I wanted to mention. Tried this on for size, men in black in training. So they're like children in black, and then they graduate.
Oh, I love that.
The day the children in black became a man in black.
And it's really cool. It's good to see that there are some female children with black eyes. So maybe they're starting to integrate. They're starting to like have a more diverse women in black.
We love the diversity.
We really do. We love to see it.
So another theory that is tossed around on the Wikipedia is ghosts, demons, children of the devil.
Right. Again, referencing the similarity we saw between the Staffordshire ghost, probably, or demon, and black-eyed children.
Yeah, and black-eyed kids being ghosts is a fairly popular theory. Ghost hunters tend to be interested in black-eyed children. I mean, there are a lot of things that match up. They're pale. They're dressed out of time. They're creepy.
They're creepy as fuck.
I've always heard that children can't be ghosts because they're innocent. So when they die, they just like go to heaven. So if you encounter a spirit that looks like a child, it's actually like a demon.
That's interesting.
Which brings us, of course, to our next theory of demons. So, I mean, yeah, what I just said, demons and evil spirits can take the form of children to kind of let people's guard down.
Absolutely. And I think that one of the tells might be the black eyes. Like, as stereotypical as it might seem to have a demon with completely black eyes, a lot of the time you have men in black and their features are not quite there, or you have ghosts that have just like faded over time. Yeah. They don't have a very strong, very stereotypically evil tell to them like black eyes.
That's fair. And there's a lot you can do with looking at the relationship between children and horror, or children and paranormal stories. Something that I think is interesting, I don't think I've seen any encounters of children to black-eyed children. They seem to always come to adults, or at least young adults, like 18. It makes sense that demons would kind of take the shape of a child, or an evil spirit would take the shape of a child and then try to infiltrate the home and the family through children, because children are known to be a lot more sensitive to the supernatural and to the paranormal. Once again, we don't know the motive of the black-eyed children, though it does seem obviously nefarious. They seem to, even if they don't want to, they definitely cause feelings of unease and fear.
And possibly even more serious reactions like we heard in the winter story.
Yeah, and so I just think it's so interesting that they don't really seem to appear to children. So many demonologists believe that black-eyed children are the offspring, the children of the devil himself. And when you invite them in, you're pretty much inviting the devil into your life.
Very spooky.
And it does line up, I feel like, in being like you're letting the devil in your life, because it's not like they attack you, but they're opening the door to a lot of just negative events. I think it aligns with a lot of demon or paranormal lore, like an Antichrist lore. It does make sense to me because it's like, you know, the movie The Omen with Damien. It's not like, I mean, he did attack people, but it's not like he was a Chucky or like a Gage from Pet Sematary. It was more, if you're close to him, if you experience him in your life, something bad will happen eventually.
Right.
Which I really, okay, in terms of horror and horror movies, I really like that a lot more. Like, I like the Annabelle of having this doll is a curse versus the Chucky, this doll literally stabs you.
Yeah, a little bit, I don't know, harder to deal with because you can throw Chucky into an incinerator.
Oh, yeah.
But what if the ghost of Annabelle just goes into like your Tamagotchi? That's fucked.
That's fucked.
And I think I just accidentally unconvinced you to buy that $30 Tamagotchi at our local thrift store.
New fear absolutely unlocked. So I think there is actually a lot that kind of lines up with more of a demon in that these attacks aren't really direct. There's a direct psychic attack, like on your emotions. But then, yeah, it's more like a curse that occurs after.
Definitely. Despite the fact that demonologists be out here like, only half of my bag of chips was full of chips. That's a demon. They ran a red light. That's a demon. Kids hate me and throw eggs at my house. They're demons.
It would definitely think I'm a demon.
Oh, definitely. You got dress coded in high school? That's a demon.
Do you ever think about how I would be burned as a witch if I lived back then? My bisexuality, my mental illness. It's crazy.
It's so fucked.
One last thing, though, about the demons. I feel like they do also play with specific rules like that. Like, you kind of do have to invite a demon in a lot of times.
Yeah, they do have these weirdly strict rules.
Yeah. So this next theory I saw off one single comment on a Reddit thread, but I really liked it. I thought it was super interesting, and we love to diversify everything we do. You know, get stories of people who are different, have a different culture than you, you know? So
we love to bring all these diverse ideas into our 3/4 white podcast about paranormal stuff.
I'm more woke than you, so don't even think about it.
Our podcast is more woke than yours is, so go ahead and take that and smoke us.
Nice. But honestly, I really think that people should engage with other cultures and try to understand them. And I think especially with black-eyed children, cryptids or paranormal phenomena in general, I just love to find the history if there are similar sightings in other cultures. That really, what's the opposite of grinds my gears? That gets my goat a lot. But I just, for some reason, I was super drawn to this theory, which is that black-eyed children are a child of a human and a jinn.
I think I'm the child of my mother and some gin.
Oh my God. Yikes, I guess. So jinn are supernatural beings present in Arabic and Islamic theology. It is said in the Quran to have been created from fire. And so for reference, humans were created from clay and angels were created from light. So you've possibly heard of the angelicized version of these beings, which are genies. But jinn are spiritual and physical, and they have free will. This allows them to roam Earth and have basically free will.
Immediately cooler than being stuck in a lamp. True. Not to throw too much shade. But
damn. So many stories recount disasters that occur when humans and jinn interact. More on the human side.
Yep.
They take more of the blunt of the blow. However, since they are a physical being, it is possible for them to interact. It is possible, and it's possible for them to interact in a romantic or sexual way.
Now I see why you love this theory so much.
Oh my God. So it's possible that a black-eyed child is a child that's half human and half djinn. The human part would be represented in the body, and the djinny part would be represented in the eyes, having the black eyes. And also, from what we know about the lore of the jinn, but also of genies, you know, they have rules.
Yeah.
It's another spiritual being that tends to have interesting rules. Like there are rules for you to be able to interact with them.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just thought that was super interesting. And it seemed like this person really thought that, like, if a human and a jinn were to have a baby, then that would be like a black-eyed child.
Yeah. And it would explain some of that disconnection from, you know, the entirely human population. Mm-hmm. But it would also explain, you know, some of their sociability, because this is, of course, one of the most social cryptids that we've heard of, that it's talking to people and, you know, come up with excuses for stuff. And in the fact that jinn aren't really necessarily evil creatures at all.
Yeah.
It could be a little bit less that these are a negative entity that show up and are frightening, and more that they are actually showing up out of interest in humans, just doing it in a way that's very bizarre because they're split between these two very different worlds. And the fear that people are dealing with is just the fear of interacting with something that is half this very powerful entity. Mm-hmm. Because from what I've heard of lore with jinn is dealing with them and like looking upon them is very difficult for people to deal with.
Yeah, I completely agree. And once again, we're both coming from a place of not being experts in jinn mythology or theology. But I completely agree. It's very clear that individuals jinni can be benevolent, malevolent. They could be just neutral.
My favorite, they can be mischievous.
They could be a little mischievous. They could be a little silly. Mm-hmm. But yeah, always some, you know, conundrum comes up when humans and jinn interact. So it could be that their child, like the offspring of the two, is just kind of like unnatural, like a little chaotic of a mix. So exactly what you said, the children aren't trying to scare people, but it's just kind of like due to just like how they're made up and how maybe chaotic the bond is in their two parts. It could be like some sort of, I don't know, like energy they emit themselves, or it could be just like a natural human response, like that classic, like, why are humans scared of like a Slender Man figure? Like, why does that naturally bring fear? It could just be a natural human response to interacting in real life with someone or something that is just uncanny.
Absolutely.
This is a weird thing to say, I guess, but I'm like obsessed with uncanniness as humans perceive it.
Yeah, that's why you picked out a dog that looks like such a freakish monster. Oh my God. Like his face is just not quite right. His head's not the right size for his body. His feet are way too big.
Honestly. Okay, because I'm also obsessed with like horror media and what makes good horror. I think that it has the potential to be really powerful, like feelings of uncanniness.
Yeah.
And so I think that, yeah, that could be the case here. There's a lot of lore, I guess, going into my theory, or like what theory I really like, is the idea of these children being half human, half some sort of paranormal being. There's even stories of, like you said, angels, and a lot of paranormal entities are very hard to encounter. It takes a huge toll. I've also heard stories of, I believe there is a type of being that's like half angel, half human. And, you know, same with like an antichrist type of like
Moonchild sort of situation.
Yeah, half devil, half human. Like, it just causes kind of chaos. It's just like unnatural.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think that could just be the rancid vibes that the black-eyed children are emitting. Like, this could be why. I would say my teenage Supernatural, the show, Supernatural fangirl self loves the idea of humans and demons mating. If you know, you know.
This is the sort of weird half awake, half dream that you were having at 4 a.m. when you were camping outside of the Comic-Con Supernatural panel.
Oh, yeah. I was up at 2 a.m. I was like, Crowley, awooga.
Awooga.
Awooga is all I gotta say. But I like the idea. I'm being honest. I think it's fun. If I encountered a demon's on my list.
You can't put like Lucifer's son Timmy on your list.
I'd be too scared in real life. But,
of course.
But it kind of does make sense to me in that they're like pretty much human. There's just some things off. And I mean, mostly it's the eyes.
It's the eyes and the fear reaction and some of like the weird behavior, but kids are weird.
Yeah.
So I guess that brings me to mine. And I would say, I'm just calling and this is lame. Kids are really weird. They act in weird ways. I think most of these could be explained by either content generation, it's just a modern piece of folklore, or the ones that people actually had the encounter, they made that connection to a story that they already heard, and really it was just a kid being weird as fuck.
Kids are really weird.
They're upsetting, and we can have a whole TikTok day where we make fun of how kids dress and their haircuts and stuff. I'm fine with that.
Kids themselves are uncanny because it's like, you're just a little adult. You're just wrong for this.
I'm saying it again. They're not people.
Oh my God.
But to take it from a more fun angle, and I'm especially into this one, I think pre-agents, like pre-Men in Black or scouting agents for Men in Black, to like gather data on what people look like and act like. That makes a lot of sense to me just because of the uncanniness, the way that they talk and when they show up, and having seen them with Men in Black-like figures, all of that makes a lot of sense to me. And I really just like the idea of Men in Black in training. I can't lie.
Yeah, children in black, for sure. And I think from a logical standpoint, there is a lot that really, I feel, links up between black-eyed children and Men in Black, that it makes sense that they are related somehow. And of course, my mind goes to like the little children, like the younglings.
So that brings us to the end of this episode of Anomalous. What do you think that they could be? Follow us on Instagram. Follow Maddie on TikTok. We'll see you in a couple of weeks with a new episode. Let us know if you have any ideas of stuff that we should cover in the future.
Please keep your eyes out, keep your mind open, and please let us know if you do have any weird experiences following listening to this episode.
I hope that you guys don't, but if you do, you better write in. And just tell them to stay on your porch.
Yeah, just don't let them in.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Ask them a couple questions through the door, but never let them in.
Yeah, and if it is late at night, don't even open the door. Dad.
Oh, I'm going to be I know we've talked about it before, but I'm going to be the horror movie dad who's like, I'll tell these fucking kids where they can go. I'll go outside with a flashlight and my boxers and set this all straight.
Yep. My dad has caused my whole family panic attacks by, we hear like a gunshot and he goes and just stands in the front yard looking around. And my whole family screaming in the background like, no, please come in.
He's like, who's got a gun out here? Show yourself.
Yeah, what the
It's not a good plan.
Oh my God.
So I'm going to say, believe in a little kid's first day in Men in Black school. He's got his little backpack on and the Men in Black is standing behind him. He's like, go up to the door, ring on it. Ask if you can come in. Just ask if you, and if they say they can't, just be like, oh, I really would like to. I just want to talk to you. Just come on in. You can do it. I believe in you.
Don't take it personal.
It's hard for everyone. It's hard to go door to door, but I believe in you. You can do this. One day you're going to be a big Man in Black, suppressing all of the alien sightings. Believe in that and believe in yourself.
That's very nice and very cute, and I love it. I really love it. Just imagine. Okay,
She's tearing up.
I am believing baby cryptids.
Baby in Black.
Just so I like even like a little Bigfoot in training.
Oh my God.
And believe in yourself. But I would also like to add one if that's okay. Believe in shooting your shot. If you ever do encounter a paranormal being that's down to clown, you will never have that opportunity again in your life. So just do it, baby, and
Wow.
believe in yourself.
Believe in fucking cryptids and believe in yourself. That's your outro.
Yes.
See you in a couple weeks. This has been Anomalous.
Bye, guys, and
Bye-bye-bye-bye.
bitches.
Bye-bye-bye-bye, bitch.